Shortly after the first coin was invented, the first fake coin was made. Because if there's one thing humans were always very good at, it was at coming up with new ways of scamming their fellow men. Ancient Rome was a highly monetized society, so someone with the right skills could potentially earn a lot of money by making fake coins and putting them in circulation. That is, if you were not caught. Being convicted of counterfeiting was punishable by death, and today I bring you some material evidence of counterfeiting. This is an ancient coin mold. What we have here is potentially the easiest and simplest way of faking a Roman coin. To start, we're gonna need some soft clay and a real coin. In this case, a denarius of Emperor Septimius Severus from the early 3rd century. We begin by making a couple of small cylinders out of that clay. Next, with our coin, we make an imprint of the obverse and reverse of the coin on each of the clay cylinders. Finally, you need an oven to fire the clay cylinders so they become hard and resistant. Okay, we have our molds. Now we need some cheap metals to make our coin. The coin being faked here was a denarius, a silver coin. So to make the whole process worthwhile, we need to make our coin out of something less valuable than a silver coin. This was achieved in a variety of ways. Some fakes were a mix of silver with copper, while others were made out of white metals that looked like silver, but were considerably cheaper. Metals such as lead, tin, or zinc could be used, as they have a relatively low melting temperature, so they could be molten down and used without the need of some overly complex furnace. Once you had the molten metal ready, you poured it between the obverse and reverse molds, waited for it to cool, and there you had it, a coin that looked just like the original. Or did it? Here I have an example of an ancient counterfeit made with this technique. It's not the same type from the mold I've just shown you. This one was made copying a denarius of Caracalla, but it serves as an example. Notice how the coin's design features aren't very sharp. I mean, we can see all of the main features of the bust and the legends, but if we compare it against a real example, let me put up on the screen a real Caracalla denarius, we can see that the silver coin has much sharper designs. That's because real Roman coins were not cast, they were struck. This resulted on a quote-unquote high-resolution, sharp image on the coin, instead of the somewhat fuzzy image we have on a cast coin. That leaves us with a bit of a paradox then. If making a cast copy resulted on something that didn't look exactly like the real thing, why bother making them in the first place? A silver denarius was a considerable amount of money, around a day worth of work, so people would have inspected each coin at the time of transaction. Most people would have noticed the forgery and rejected it. Not only that, but other types of forgeries existed. What I mean by other types is counterfeits made with entirely different techniques. Take a look at this denarius of Emperor Hadrian. This is a plated forgery. This was a more complex technique, where a copper blank was covered with a thin sheet of silver. The coin was then struck, resulting in a much more realistic forgery, with the level of visual sharpness that only a struck coin could have. In this example, we see that after some time, the thin silver sheet started to peel off, exposing the copper core. But when this forgery was brand new, it would have looked exactly like an authentic coin. Okay, now we get to one of the coolest things about this mold and the coins it produced. It was actually not meant to fool anyone. You see, it all has to do with the area where these are generally found. The Romans had a name for their frontier regions, the limes. Some important examples were the Germanic and Danube limes, Hadrian's Wall up in Britain, as well as the eastern limes that separated Rome from the Persians. The limes often had entire legions stationed in the area to defend the richer inner provinces against any invasion. These regions were the least stable of the empire. Despite the presence of the legions being a deterrent for major enemy expeditions, The frontier was surprisingly permeable, meaning small raiding parties and bandits were a constant threat, so the Romans had a problem. How could they ensure that tons of gold and silver needed to pay the soldiers on the frontier safely reached its destination? In peaceful times, the very well-developed road network, their advanced logistics system, and big, well-armed convoys were enough to protect the shipments of coins coming from the imperial treasury. But sometimes, particularly during war, the limes was just too dangerous and unstable. This is where our molds come in. Apparently during these troubled times, to ensure the soldiers had money to spend, the local administration produced these fake denarii and allowed them to circulate for their silver value. Once war was over and the situation calmed down, when good silver coins were finally able to reach the region, these limes denarii would be exchanged for good coins and then discarded. That's why limes denarii are rarer than real coins. Most of them would have likely been withdrawn and recycled, and the ones that reached our days are the ones that were lost by their owners. So, for our final verdict, this mold was actually not the fruit of an unscrupulous counterfeiter, but most likely just the work of an artisan that lived in a frontier region of the Roman Empire, instructed by the local governor to make these, let's say, sanctioned fakes, so the soldiers were paid in time and the economy still had enough coins to function. I think we can declare him innocent and close the case. What do you think? Do you have an ancient counterfeit coin? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this little episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.